Welcome back, Ramley, to another weekly episode of the SOC 808 podcast, where the discussions are hot like sriracha sauce. And I'm your host, Siraj Mahal, third year business law major at Ryerson University. Today in the podcast, I'll be discussing the reading The Supermarket Tour, published by OPIRG, and reflecting on my visit to the Loblaw supermarket on Carlton Street next to the Manly Athletic Center. Before I begin, I'd like to thank the main sponsor of my podcast, Professor Monica Corzin, who provided me with the supermarket tour reading and gave me the opportunity to reflect and share my opinions on the reading and my supermarket tour experience. Starting off with a couple of background facts about Loblaws, it was chosen to be the topic of discussion of today's podcast because it is the central hub of grocery shopping for Ryerson students and is one of the main grocery stores with lots of variety in Canada that people shop at. This podcast really wanted to focus on a mass market supermarket, and Loblaws fits that mold perfectly. It is located on 60 Carlton Street next to Ryerson's main gym, the Manly Athletic Center, and is within a 10-minute walk of the Ryerson campus. Looking at the supermarket tour reading, I chose to investigate the supermarket as a whole, and that pertains to aisle 1, going to the market in the reading. I wanted to further examine the supermarket as a whole and how it is manipulated to try and get the customer to buy more items and keep them there longer. There were strategies in this chapter that will be touched on later in this podcast that I really wanted to examine and see if they were actually true. My first discussion topic will be what surprised me most about reading the supermarket tour. In aisle 1 of the reading, I was surprised to find that the stores can use a boutiquing technique where products like barbecue sauce are placed next to the meat section, making it easier for consumers to pair the items together. I never really put much thought into this strategy even existing at first. Another thing that surprised me is that more is paid for advertising and packaging than we pay farmers to grow the actual food. When looking at the packaging for basic items like rice and Rice Krispies, as shown to the left, there looks to be a lot of time and effort put into the packaging of these two products to try and catch the eye of the consumer. I personally thought that it would be the complete opposite, with farmers getting paid the most since they are the ones that produce the products. Over the years, dominant values in the North American food system have changed and now have become more focused on cost, convenience, and appearance, with a significant part of the grocery bills include the money spent by manufacturers on advertising and packaging. Finally, the last thing that surprised me was the fact that eye levels play a big role in making products sell better, and slotting fees are actually paid by large corporations to ensure that they have prime shelf space. And since these slotting fees are often expensive, smaller manufacturers are unable to pay them, which forces them to take the second grade shelf space for their products. The next point of discussion is what I agreed with and what I disagreed with after reading the supermarket tour. I agree with the fact that 80% of new products fail, so retailers protect themselves by providing shelf space in exchange for discounts, favorable payment terms, and a guarantee that the manufacturer will heavily advertise their product. I agree with this point because due to the volume of products that are present and majority of products being produced by a few corporations like PC, Kellogg's, and Nestle, many new brands want to guarantee that the manufacturer will heavily advertise their product. I also agree with the fact that 66% of all buying decisions are made after the consumer enters the supermarket. I agree with this point because even if the consumer ends up making a list, there is still a lot of items that end up in their carts that weren't supposed to be there, such as an extra bag of chips, or toys for children, or chocolate at the checkout. Speaking from personal experience, even when I go grocery shopping, I end up buying items like an extra bag of chips or candy that wasn't on my list initially, but I end up buying since I already am at the store and have to pass through the snacks aisle before getting to necessity items that were on my list, such as milk. On the other hand, I disagree with the point in the reading that extra large and deep shopping carts give the illusion that using the whole cart for a few items is a waste. I don't think this makes much of an impact as it made out to be in the reading because some consumers may just want to come in for what they need and leave, or if they do have a smaller list of items, majority of supermarkets have smaller carts or baskets that can be used. When examining Loblaws, for example, as you can see on the right hand side, they have both the large shopping carts as well as the smaller baskets for smaller lists. My third topic of discussion is talking about the information in the supermarket tour reading being biased. After reading through it, most of the solutions are based off one person's opinion, and they are repeated throughout the text in different chapters. The same solutions, such as buy locally and go vegetarian, come up, and they are constantly driven into the reader's mind from the author. The author seems to show a very one sided opinion on topics like GMOs, making them seem like the transnational corporations are the only ones to blame for them. Furthermore, some of the alternatives are an inconvenience to most people, such as going to smaller shops, which could be farther away, and joining a food co op, which could be time consuming. These alternatives seem like they come from someone trying to tell the reader what works for them, and it feels as if the author was really trying to enforce and preach an opinion to the reader. It made me feel as if the author's opinion was the only opinion on this topic of supermarkets. To provide a demonstration of my experience, I recorded myself walking through Loblaws. I'll let the walkthrough play while I continue talking. I'll discuss my experience and how my views have changed. Before entering the supermarket, my expectations were that there was no way that Loblaws would be a supermarket using these techniques, and that the reading had taken the overview of the supermarket to the extreme, and critically analyzed every little detail of the supermarket. I expected Loblaws to allow the consumer to make their own choices and not try and manipulate them. I was amazed at how similar the description of the supermarkets in the reading was to how the actual supermarket was laid out. The information that was presented in aisle 1 of the reading, I completely agree with after touring Loblaws. Loblaws itself is set up in the right-handed direction, as demonstrated in the video and like the reading said. The music at Loblaws was relaxing, mellow music with the lyrics drawn out, and a lot of music was millennial music since that's the supermarket's main consumer. The colors that were present were warm colors that were explained in the reading to make you hungry, such as red, orange, and yellow. I saw real life examples of the boutiquing technique that was displayed by having sauces next to the meats and spreads like Nutella next to the bread. Big name brands were placed at eye level of an average adult, and the majority of the aisles were dominated by a few companies such as President's Choice, Kellogg's, Schneider's, Nestle, and Kraft. Seasonal items like Halloween candy were also placed in and around the store and around major departments, for example, in and around the produce section, almost as if constantly reminding the consumer to stock up on their Halloween candy. Lastly, like the reading discussed, supermarkets are becoming more of the one stop shopping experience. After visiting Loblaws, I strongly agree with this point. Loblaws is everything you need in one place. They offer grocery shopping, a large variety of hot food with a sitting area, cleaning supplies, a pharmacy, ATMs, bakery, birthday cards, gift cards, magazines, clothing, the LCBO, phones, watches, and even a PC Plus cooking school. As the video of my tour finishes up here, I'll give my thoughts on this experience. This experience greatly impacted my existing ideas and assumptions of the supermarket. All these underlying strategies used to manipulate the consumer went over my head initially. Now, after reading the supermarket tour, I have a more keen eye for these strategies. I feel as if I'm going to be able to make better choices when buying my food and really look out for these strategies discussed in today's podcast that are used by companies and the supermarket. Just the one experience at Loblaws alone has really opened my eyes. I learned that I shouldn't be taking anything for granted and shouldn't be so naive when it comes to grocery shopping. At the end of the day, it is a business for the few corporations that control the supermarket world, so of course they would use tactics to make the most amount of profit out of the consumer. It was foolish of me to think that us as consumers have control of what we buy. It is an illusion that is created, and instead, we are greatly influenced by the large multinational and dominant corporations. My future shopping experiences will be greatly altered as a result of this tour. Every time I go grocery shopping, I have to have these ideas in my mind and try my best not to give into the lure that the supermarket has created. A strategy that I will use from now on will be that I will make a list beforehand so I know what I have to get, stick to it, and try to get my shopping done as quickly as possible. This way, I won't be distracted by the supermarket. Just some closing remarks now, Ramley, before this podcast concludes. I'd like to thank once again my main sponsor, Professor Monica Corzin, and I'd like to thank you all, wherever you're listening from, for tuning in to the Ram Soak 808 podcast. And be sure to catch next week's episode, and always remember to keep it fresh like fresh fruit. Until next week, peace out, Ramley.